First one we did 6 months or so ago. And I'm going to briefly touch on some of my travels that we've already talked about. But today's mostly going to be about a few really cool cases I've seen in the last year or so. We'll talk a little bit specifically about wildlife rehab and some of the challenges and goals that we have in trying to release them. And then last but not least, my trip to Panama with my daughter Emily about 3 months ago, where we did a whole bunch of volunteer work and maybe a little bit of surfing as well while I was there. All right, so let's get to this. That handsome little chubby faced kid there is me when I was 5 years old. And even then, I think I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I'm definitely living the dream here. And a little bit about myself. I'm a ultra endurance guy. I like to pretend I'm a rock and roll star from the 80s. A bit of a martial artist, and I'm going to talk a lot here and there about surfing because it's become my real passion hobby. I picked up surfing during the pandemic 2 years ago in Lake Ontario. And for any of you guys who don't know, there's amazing surfing in all the Great Lakes, as long as you have a really, really good wetsuit and don't mind having a ice beard if you have a beard like I do. But it's a great sport, and it's a lot easier on the joints than the martial arts that I used to do. So I've been sort of in this space. I've been a veterinarian for 24 years, but I actually had a little TV show on a local cable station where we interviewed some cool people. And before he got in trouble, I got to meet and interview Cesar Millan. Let's just say, I don't know if I'd interview him anymore. I think he's had some problems lately, but I certainly enjoyed it, and it was nice meeting someone shorter than me because I'm quite a small person. And so I started traveling and recording my experiences, and have this YouTube channel, Dr. Cliff Worldwide Vet. So that's what that fun little photo there on the right is. And so let's get right to it, I guess. So I started traveling 5.5 years ago to Jamaica. And although I arrived with all kinds of medicine and sutures and surgical equipment, the biggest thing they wanted were e-collars, the cones of shame. They didn't have any on the island, and they were using buckets that they would just cut holes into. So I quickly learned how to sort of MacGyver things together and solve problems without all the necessary fancy tools. That dog seems pretty happy, though. I think he likes the color that I think it matches his eyes, maybe. The one that I'm holding in my arms, that dog's name is Flip. And Flip had a spinal injury and would zoom around the ground when he wasn't in his little wheelchair cart with the biggest smile, and his tail still wagged, which was pretty amazing. And you could see on that photo that he doesn't seem sad at all that he's less able than some of his dog friends. So, while I was there for 3 weeks, and we mostly did some work with we did a bunch of spay-neuter programs. I worked with the Jamaican SPCA, and I also did some work with a turtle rescue, where we released some of the hawksbill newly hatched turtles. What I didn't expect is to end up working with some pretty exotic animals like the greater funnel-eared bat, which is about the size of a mouse. And there's only 500 of these things in the entire world, and they all live in this one cave in St. Clair, the St. Clair Caves in Jamaica. And the reason they're there is they're too small to fly to any of the other caves. So over the last, tens of thousands of years, they've slowly evolved and changed so that they're their own, very, very unique and unfortunately endangered species. We ended up doing some work and doing some research to try and figure out why the various bat populations were dying off. And while we knew there's a fungal disease called white nose disease, that's a problem, it was actually the feral cats that were getting down into the caves and leaping up and grabbing just hundreds of bats, over the course of a month, let's say, and slowly damaging their numbers. So it's a trend. We're going to hear a few of these stories about how the stray animals are not only sort of a danger to themselves, and they carry diseases that people can get, but they're actually hurting a lot of the endangered wild animals as well. I got to work with a an American crocodile. This little guy, One-Eyed Jack, had injured his one eye that you can kind of see in the picture. So we ended up having to sedate him, thank goodness, and remove his eye. He had been shot by a scared farmer that had shot him with a harpoon gun. So he ended up living in the Kingston Zoo after that eye was removed. But they do a really good job in Jamaica, considering their sort of challenge, or they're struggling financially as a country. They do really well, and I would say better than us here in North America, at taking care of their endangered populations and working with getting animals back out into the wild. And actually, one of those stories is back in the 60s, back in the 50s, the 1950s, this Jamaican iguana was considered extinct, gone completely. And then in the mid 90s, they found a small family of them up in the Hellshire Hills, and quickly blocked off like a 2-kilometer, which is about a 1.5 mile area, and created this iguana sanctuary. And they capture, they pull up the eggs, they protect them. Once the eggs hatch, they bring the hatchlings down to the zoo. They live at the zoo for about a year, and then get released back up into the wild, back up in this Hellshire Hill area. They do some work with the zoo and the college in Miami, Florida, and they've actually brought this once thought extinct, and probably only a dozen once they found out about them in the 90s, this species. Now there's probably about 1,000 of them living on the island. So they've done a really, really good job. Oh, I didn't even realize that was a video. Look at that. Let's see that. Let's see what that shows. Oh, no, it wasn't. Sorry about that. So I'm gonna pull back, because I think I actually did create a little video. Oh, I did. So I think this was just about some of my Jamaican adventures. So bear with me here. So far, I don't see any breaks.
Look at the bats.
Not that far in the Inferno, there's a little side passage where it runs into an even like the chimney gathers bats that we have moved out from the Inferno.
Yes, you have to anticipate their moves. Think like a bat. This is a species we've never caught before.
One of the benefits of giving this now is to test how sedated he is. Someone want to come grab that side?
Okay, you want to walk around? Walk around. She's like, you're carrying me.
There we go. I'm glad I stumbled upon that. I forgot I'd created that video. So Jamaica ended up turning into be a much bigger adventure than I anticipated, with a lot more exotic animals and wild animals than I realized. And I think it was that adventure and that fun that I had that resulted in me deciding I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep traveling and keep volunteering and helping where I can and learning as well. So that's my next segue, I guess. The next place I visited to was Greece. We worked with the 9 Lives Cat Rescue in Athens. And there's a huge slew of street cats that these different cat colonies that the restaurateurs actually help take care of, because the cats scare away the mice and the rats. But there were a lot of eye injuries and upper respiratory infections and things like that we needed to deal with. On top of that, I actually went to the island of Peros and did some work with the Aegean Wildlife Hospital as well. Mostly birds is what they have there. And then for me, it was a big deal to go and see the Acropolis. The Acropolis and the Parthenon in Athens is where medicine was essentially created. Hippocrates, the philosopher and scientist, started sort of researching and teaching medicine. And I like to thank him for doing what he did, because I'm a doctor, so I feel like I benefited from his teachings in one way or another. Now, when we were in Greece, unfortunately, they have a lot of wildfires there for various reasons, and there was one about 5 days prior that completely destroyed this cottage sort of community. A couple thousand homes were destroyed, 80 people killed. So after the firefighters and the paramedics and all the various rescue people went in and cleared the space, we then went in with the 9 Lives Cat Rescue, and we treated some farm animals. We trapped a bunch of cats and brought them back to the hospitals. A lot of burn wounds, as you can see on this one cat on the right. And then this little cat, which they named Cliff, little Cliff, he had some lung and some eye damage. They all did well and found new homes, because often the families that they lived with, they weren't sort of really pets. They were more in and out cats that kind of came and went. So we ended up having to find new homes for a bunch of them. But it was a pretty special moment, and I've been back to Greece quite a few times. My wife is Greek, so that's part of the reason, but I really enjoy working with the people there. But not as much as I enjoyed working with the people in India. So that was my next trip. We went to Hyderabad, which is in the Telangana state. The gentleman in the red shirt on the picture to the right was my first ever hiree as a veterinarian. He came, Dr. Smad Khan, came to Canada as a foreign trained veterinarian, volunteered with me to help him get his license. Ended up, I hired him. He became the best veterinarian I ever hired. He then left for family reasons years later and is now running a massive practice in Qatar near Dubai. But Hyderabad is where he's from. So when I told him I wanted to go to India, he got me in touch with People for Animals and the veterinarians that work there. And I was pretty amazed. For anyone who's been to India, the people are the nicest people in the world, and karma is a big deal, and they're just so friendly and spiritual, regardless of their religion. Even if they don't have a religion, it was a real special time, and that's probably going to be my next trip. I'm hoping to go back for Diwali, which is kind of like their Christmas, which this year I think is in late October. But while we were there, we did a lot of work with rescuing the street dogs. This was my daughter Emily's first trip with me, and since then she's been my right-hand gal for sure. And we did, as I said, we did a lot of work with the street dogs, which I used to call them the strays or the homeless dogs, but we kind of quickly realized that the street is actually their home. And even though they may not have a bed or a house to go into, the people in the community in each little street take care of these dogs and name them and feed them. And the dogs don't want to come back in. This little guy on the left, I called him Bandit. He's just a puppy. He's probably about 8 months old, and he would come up and he'd get food from me. And anytime I tried to pick him up, or he would run away, and then he'd come back the next day. And he started to learn my schedule. So he would actually show up in the morning every time we were coming into the shelter, so he could get some biscuits from me, and then he would take off. And he was happy. He was happy living on the street. But again, we ended up, I got a little bit out of my comfort zone and had to deal with some wild animals. This giant flying fox fruit bat, giant fruit bat, was injured because it had been wrapped up with some kite wire hanging from a tree. They have these kite festivals, and unfortunately this wire, they call it manja wire, it's just all over the place, hanging from these trees for months and months, and so birds and bats get their feet caught up. And he was one of two, and the second one didn't survive, whereas this guy, he ended up just injuring his wrist. They told me afterwards I probably should have handled them with gloves on. I'm making that common mistake that I forget that these guys carry diseases. There's a fungal disease that these giant bats can have. So hopefully, so far I feel fine, so I think I'm okay. But I'm definitely learning more and more to that I'm not immortal, and I got to start putting gloves on. And then, you know, talk about being out of my comfort zone. Never done a primate before. This little monkey had injured its jaw. You can see the sutures that I put to fix the broken jaw that he had to kind of wrap around his canine teeth, and then just do this loop tie to bring the middle of the jaw back together. And he had a big laceration on his head. But what we didn't realize is he had suffered some nerve damage in his hand. And we unfortunately ended up a couple days later having to amputate his arm. But the biggest problem we had with that was he was getting at the sutures and pulling off the e-collar. He could literally undo the knot, undo the bow that the e-collar was being sort of used to hold onto his neck, because he had such nimble fingers, right? So I ended up coming up with the idea of getting him a little onesie, getting her a little onesie. We had named her Clementine, so it was nice that we had a Clementine color for this little baby onesie, and then we could actually tie a knot in the sleeve and then use the tape, as you can see on the one photo, to kind of protect the wound. So India was amazing, and you know, my next trip ended up being to Egypt. Now this was right at the beginning of the pandemic. It was just over 2 years ago. I think a couple days before I got on the plane was our first diagnosis of a COVID patient in not only in Ontario, but in Markham, which is where my clinic is, which is a small city right beside Toronto. I joked my family didn't want me to go, they didn't want me to travel, and I kind of joked that there were no reported cases in Egypt, so it might be safer there. Of course, there's no reported cases because they weren't testing, but I ended up working with this Forever dog foster, it's called. But they specifically had asked me to come. I hadn't decided where I was going to go, and then a month prior, they reached out to me because of this one dog on the right. Salim had been purposely burned in the face with acid. A lot of people don't like dogs there in Egypt. They find them dirty, nasty mongrels. Cats are protected. Cats are protected animals because of the ancient Egyptian history that they have, that they're considered royal creatures. But it wasn't only until about 5 years ago that dogs received the same protection that cats have. Anyways, we ended up doing major surgery on Salim, and he ended up, after healing up, he did find a home in the UK, which took him about a year to get to because of the whole coronavirus thing. But Egypt was a pretty amazing trip. Again, we did mostly work with dogs, no real exotic creatures this time. A lot of street dogs, a lot of spays and neuters, a lot of hit by car wounds. Parvovirus for puppies was a big deal. That's what the guy up on the top left has. Oops. We did a little bit of work, mostly toured a facility called Prince Kareem Fluffy Pants. Prince Fluffy Kareem. Prince Fluffy Kareem is a horse sanctuary, and they're all over the world. Really well known for their care and their high level of rehab work. And what they actually do is they'll take animals that are being mistreated or more likely undercared for by owners. They will care for them and they'll educate the owners and then give them the horses back. which can be controversial, of course. Can definitely be controversial, except they had learned quickly in Egypt that, first of all, horses, for some of these families that are so poor, horses were the only way they could make money, be it, pulling carts and delivering goods, doing a little bit of farm work, what have you. And they would much rather educate these people and not judge them and not ridicule them and get them back their horses, and then instead try and get it so that it was a better scenario for that horse and all other horses as well, which was kind of nice. It kind of opened my eyes a bit to not always sort of be up on a pedestal and shake your finger at someone who's not doing right, where you get a lot better results over the long term if you can educate them and not be so judgmental. Now, not all the horses went back to the owners. These were they said they're Arabians, and I don't know a lot about horses, but I've worked with enough over the years that I don't think these are Arabians. But they actually would then rehab them, and you can rent them and take them out to the Sahara Desert with these pyramids and these amazing views, and take them for walks and runs. They certainly like to gallop. And they'll charge you appropriately. It's not too cheap. I think I paid 50 American dollars per person for about an hour and a half, but well worth it. And the money goes directly to the to this rehab place. So it's I recommend it highly. If anyone goes to Cairo, reach out to me and I can get you in contact with these people, and you can take a ride through the desert. It's quite an experience. Now we ended up we had a little fun adventure. We actually talked our way into walking along the desert and seeing some of the smaller, but in my opinion, much more beautiful pyramids than the Giza pyramids, and getting a tour from this guy who is this old herder. But only afterwards did we realize that he was packing heat. And he explained that there are bad people in the desert, and he needs to protect himself. This guy had to be about 70 years old, and the gun looked like it was older than him. So I'm not so sure it was functional, but it was quite an adventure seeing that halfway through the trip, that we're in the middle of this desert with this guy who's carrying a gun. At least for us Canadians, that's a very unusual thing. We did see the Giza pyramids, and we actually spent a day. We took the train north up to Alexandria and did some work for the day with the Alexandria. It's like a Alexandria Wildlife Rescue. Alexandria is right across the Mediterranean Sea from Greece, which is again where a bit of my heritage is from, but my wife's heritage. So it was kind of cool because a lot of the people spoke this dialect that was a hybrid between Greek and Arabic. I don't speak any Arabic, but I do speak a decent amount of Greek, so I was able to kind of get some special treatment and have some fun conversations with some of the locals. So these two photos always make me laugh. With all these trips and all these wild animals, I started to realize I needed to just get some experience working with non-cat and dog creatures. So I made some friends with the Shades of Hope Wildlife Rescue. I got very friendly with that mule, and that raccoon's either laughing at my jokes or about to take a chomp out of my neck. I guess we could say I was making a joke because I don't have any scars on my neck from him. So I've done a lot of work. I now volunteer with these guys every Friday. I'm going tomorrow as well, every Friday, and we do everything from some pretty unique owls. They see a lot of owls, obviously raccoons and deer. We saw a red-eared slider that obviously had been run over by a car. And the amazing thing about this red-eared slider, we gave him some fluids under the skin, sort of by the armpit, and gave him some pain medication. And we ended up shipping him off to the turtle hospital in Peterborough, which is a couple hours away from us, specializes in turtles. And they asked us to stabilize the shell to use good old-fashioned Canadian duct tape. And we duct taped the shell back on, and they ended up leaving the duct tape for about 2 months. So that actually worked as kind of like a cast. And this guy ended up fully recovering and healing up and got released again. We unfortunately see too many animals being shot with BB pellets. The X-ray on the right is from that little pellet in the middle, and it was a Canadian goose that got shot right in the head. Thank goodness the brain is small in birds, because it missed his brain and didn't cause any permanent damage. But it was really tricky kind of finding that thing without causing too much damage. But we see animals come in, birds come in with easily 6 or 7 pellets in them, all likely from different shootings. And it's just, you know, I was going to say a bad word, but it's just dumb people that you know, don't know what they're doing and think it's funny to shoot at birds and squirrels. So we have a lot of those trauma cases. A lot of baby animals, little baby bat, baby possum, Virginia possum, which are not native to Ontario. So we often have a lot of problems with frostbite on these guys, and then obviously a baby raccoon. This raccoon is from a whole family where the mother died. They think she was struck by a vehicle, and they found the raccoon little pups, the little baby raccoons, and the raccoon rescue in our area took care of them. And one of those cases is going to be sort of our case of the night as well. But they've got 7 or 8 of them that now have been released, other than 2 that have some permanent problems. So they kind of live in this jungle gym outdoor enclosure of sorts where they can come and go, but they can't really survive 100% on their own. So they're sort of like outdoor pets, which is kind of adorable. You guys probably remember this from last talk, but I definitely got challenged on this case. Is an American bullfrog. It is about the size of a small dinner plate with a broken ankle, and we actually pinned it. We pinned it together, and I think I might have used, no, that is a regular orthopedic pin. It's just probably like a 2mm pin. But there have been times where we've had to use like paper clips as surgical pins. The challenging case with this one is he would hold his breath, so we couldn't use gas anesthesia, because, you know, when a frog gets frightened, they'll hold their breath for 20 or 30 minutes. But as those who are here last time might remember, or you may already know, that these amphibians can absorb oxygen and gases through their skin. So we ended up calling a frog hospital in Australia, which I think is hilarious that they have that. And they gave us the recipe for taking a liquid anesthesia, putting it into saline, creating basically an anesthetic bath for this guy. And we had him lying on his back as we kind of sponge bathed him with anesthesia. And it would work. And if he, you know, if his movements started to pick up, or if he'd start to blink a little too rapidly, we knew that we had to sponge him faster. And if his leg, which was kind of hanging out over this little sort of hot tub of anesthetic drug, the leg that was hanging out that I was working on, if it became too relaxed, then we were giving him too much drug, and we pulled back on the sponge bath. But it was pretty amazing case, and I certainly learned a lot. It was pretty spectacular. So Shades of Hope has been pretty amazing for me, because, you know, now, so for 3.5 years, you know, almost every single week, except if they're not busy, which is rare, I'm coming across so many cases and so many raptors and wild birds and birds of prey that have broken wings and broken legs. I used to not do any orthopedic surgery at all, not even in dogs or cats. It's kind of a specialty, but because they don't have another veterinarian and they're Canada's busiest wildlife rehab, and no other veterinarians willing to volunteer, I guess, they basically said, well, you know, you might as well learn. And things, you know, I've learned quite a bit, and I'm now able to handle some pretty complicated cases. I just did a porcupine last week that had broken its femur bone, his thigh bone, and the bone is thick enough that to put in the cross pins, we actually had to use like a Black & Decker drill from the local hardware store that was all sterilized to drill pilot holes in the bone. And that was the first time I got to do that. And it worked very, very well. And the porcupine's already standing on the legs. So it's great to be able to volunteer and to be able to push your limits. And, you know, I've been a veterinarian 24 years and I'm still learning a lot and I still have a lot to learn, but it's a real honor to be able to get better and better and better and to help these creatures out. So let's talk a little bit sort of about some of my favorite cases. So this one, let me just double check. Yes. So this one was a seagull, and as you can see, this seagull went fishing and decided to, or got caught with a lure and decided he was a fish and swallowed this giant fishing hook. And you can see on these x-rays, I mean, it ended up being I believe it was a 3-hook fishing hook, and it was all the way down into his gizzard. So I'll set some stuff up for the video that's coming up. The video is about 2.5 minutes, and it's kind of clips regarding the surgery that my daughter and I did. And so she's been coming to Shades of Hope with me as well. And there's a couple of challenges with this. So first of all, the anatomy is a little bit different. Well, the anatomy is a lot different than, say, a cat or a dog. They kind of have 2 stomachs. That's simplifying it, but they've got a soft stomach called the crop. And then past the crop is a very, very muscular stomach called the gizzard. And birds will swallow gravel and little pellets and little rocks, pebbles. And that muscular gizzard kind of contracts and squeezes those rocks and pebbles to help grind up the food, because obviously birds don't have teeth, so they can't grind up the seeds or the, you know, whatever it is that they're eating. So this thing was stuck in this gizzard that is this super muscular organ that we're going to have to cut into. But on top of that is birds don't have diaphragms. So their chest containing their lungs, which I'll get to in a second, but their lungs and their heart is the same cavity that their abdomen is. So when I go into the abdomen to look for this gizzard, the bird's stomach, I've got right above it the heart that's beating, and then these bird lungs. Now, birds do have these tiny, tiny little lungs, but they actually have air sacs, which are basically these clear tissue, as thin as saran wrap, like plastic wrap, sacs of air that expand and contract whenever the bird breathes. And the entire abdomen / chest, it's all one cavity, is filled with these things. And so while I'm doing surgery, if this bird takes a breath, or if we breathe for it, meaning we squeeze the anesthetic bag, these sacs fill up, and they fill up much of the abdomen. And so I have to be careful, because I've got this very sharp scalpel blade in there, or very sharp tools as I'm digging around. And what you'll see on the video, or what you'll hear, pardon me, on the video, is this bird ended up not breathing, and which is common with birds under anesthesia, that we have to breathe for them. So we basically squeeze the bag that forces air into their chamber, into their air sacs, for this guy's case. So if you listen carefully, you'll hear my daughter, Emily, say breath. And every time she did that, I knew a second later she was going to squeeze the bag, and I would have to either pull my hands out or kind of pull them into the center so as to make sure none of my tools or my fingers don't damage or nick the air sac. Because you get a tiniest little tear in an air sac and the bird dies. The bird cannot survive. So it was a very precarious surgery. I'd never done anything like this before, never done exploratory on a bird. And so I will apologize that there was 1 or 2 swear words in this video, completely natural and just me being amazed at what was going on. A little bit of blood in this video as well, so if you're super squeamish, I apologize. But let's go right to this, and I hope you guys enjoy this video.
The car was started, we were on our way out, and they came out running after my dad, basically saying that there is a seagull with a hook that's, I think, down its throat.
Holy jeez.
Can't even see the hook yet. That's just the leader.
We have a ring-billed gull. You wouldn't call it a seagull. We don't have any seas around here. Ring-billed gull with a fishing line hanging from its mouth. We were naively hoping it was a very tiny hook. Holy jeez. That looks like an anchor from the HMS Pinafore. Wow.
It's got to be in its digestive system. It has to be, right?
How is that going to get past the crop? Like, that thing's huge. How small is the sphincter of the crop?
It got down. That whole thing got down.
But where is the crop normally? Isn't it? Is it up high?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, let's rock and roll.
I don't know how the hell we're gonna get in there. It's way up underneath. And they don't have a diaphragm to protect their lungs like cats and dogs. If we don't do this, he's gonna be dead in half a day. So it expands the air sacs, and I want to make sure I don't nick them. In there, you'll see a headlamp.
In side pocket or main?
Main, I think.
Bruh.
I think it's underneath the air sacs. Like, it looks like a stomach
Bruh.
to me.
Ventriculus.
It's definitely muscular. Go a little bit longer.
Breath.
Okay, it's higher up than my finger. Fuck.
You're not going to be able to do anything with it, Cliff. Like, you can't get at it.
We're gonna assume it's in the intestinal tract, the digestive tract. Take your finger out. I'm gonna cut into this, and you're gonna basically hold it open. It's there. This. Okay. Do we try and pull this out? Knowing that the gizzard's pretty sort of flexible and tough, and the pointy parts are pointing this way?
Try.
Or do we try and find the pointy parts and cut them?
I guess it's not
Okay,
normal.
can we cut
Yeah.
this? Still alive? Holy fuck.
Do you want me to just cut it?
Yeah, just cut the wire. Yeah, there you go.
There's nothing else, bruh?
Yeah, hold it open so it doesn't spill grossness. Leakage.
Alrighty. So they sent me,
The car was
sorry about that. They sent me a photo of that bird an hour later as we were driving home. I got out of there as fast as I could in case they were going to drag me in again. And the bird had woken up and was looking around and was starting to get interested in food. So hopefully none of you guys got too squeamish from the blood in that surgery. So the next case, definitely memorable. So this is one of the raccoons from the raccoon rescue that I mentioned. His name is Kenzo, and they don't know what happened. Kenzo was growing up there with the 7 other raccoons with his siblings, and they assumed he might have fallen off the dresser because they have one room that when they were that young that they had sort of free reign in the one room. But he ended up breaking his thigh bone, his femur. So you can see on the left there, and then obviously the bandage that they had wrapped up to keep it as stable as possible. But he'd broken the biggest bone in his body, his thigh bone. And this was my first mammal like orthopedic pin surgery that I had ever done. Complicated because the fracture was so close to the hip, which is the lower part of this x-ray. You can kind of see the rectangular pelvis. So because it's by the hip and that close, I can't do any cross pins. I can only do a single sort of what's called an IM, or intramedullary, or within the bone pin. So this is the kind of pin that we put in there. Now, if you take a look, I don't know if you guys can see my my cursor, my arrow, but this pin coming up out of the thigh bone doesn't really look like it's in the right angle. So this was the x-ray we did immediately afterwards, and I went, shoot, it did not go up through the, high enough through the hip. It kind of made another hole that it wasn't supposed to. So the bad x-ray is on the right, and the good x-ray is on the left. The quality of the x-ray is not great, I apologize, but you can certainly see that the pin is allowing the thigh bone to be in a proper alignment now. So that was my first complication, and let's call it a mistake. This one was a mistake. That was my first complication on this case. The second one, which I don't have a video or a photo of, is where he ended up, when it was almost time to remove this pin, which is only in 3 weeks, because they're so young, they heal really fast. He had, again, fallen or something had happened, but that pin went downwards through the knee. Now, we were going to pull it anyway, so we pulled it a few days early, and it appeared like everything was that he'd missed all sort of vital ligaments of the knee. But we didn't really know how he was going to heal, so we bandaged him up with this really weird figure-8 sling, so he couldn't move his leg for a while. And as ugly as it is, and these sort of knots of calcium at the top of the x-ray, that's a very well-healed bone fracture, especially for an animal who's not willing to do physiotherapy or rest properly. So he was a challenge, but challenge accepted, and he ended up doing well. It wasn't without complications, and the first one was a mistake that I had made. But thank goodness we took x-rays and corrected things, and Mother Nature lets these guys heal really well. So here's a fun little video showing you Kenzo and his buddies. Kenzo is now, he's been released. So they basically take this, pardon me, they take this playground that they have, and they have a doorway that eventually they can come and go as they please, and they would feed them. So they would obviously come back for food. But eventually, they would do less and less food. So after a while, the raccoons would say, well, I'm not coming back for a couple of days because you're not feeding me enough. And that's how they do what's called a soft release. I joke that it's like sending kids off to college. They're going to come back for weekends and bring their laundry and ask for some food money and raid your fridge. But it's like a slow way of them being soft released into the real world. And they're about as much trouble as these raccoons are. So enjoy this video. Oh, the guy's adorable. So as you can tell, his leg's pretty strong, and he's done very, very well. And he's not one of the ones that stuck around. He was able to have a proper release, and he's off running around. And they really only see him maybe once a month or so now. It's basically when the weather's really, really cold, they might come by and hang out for a little bit, but they like to be out on their own. Again, just like kids. They like to eventually be adults and go have their own lives. Oops, sorry about that. All right, so that's been my Shades of Hope experience. And one of the things I want to talk to you guys about, and one of the challenges we have, and I guess one of the most common questions I get is, why did you have to euthanize that animal? I'll talk about cases on my Instagram account, and a lot of times we have to euthanize these cases. And I would say, out of the cases that I see for Shades of Hope, 50% of them have to be put to sleep. And it's either that we look at them right away and say, no, this wound is way too bad, we can't fix it. Or the lead poisoning from the BB pellets is so bad that we can't get this bird back to health. Or they don't recover from, they make it through the surgery, but they don't rehab properly. Now, there's a lot of animals that I don't see, and I would say 80% of the animals, at least, probably higher than that they see as Shades of Hope are released. But a lot of them are infants and newborns and eyes closed squirrels, so just days old, that they're basically nursing until they're strong enough to go out on their own. But the reason a lot of them have to be euthanized is at Shades of Hope follows some very strict wildlife rehab rules that are rules throughout North America. And not every wildlife place follows this, but if they want to be a certified wildlife rehabber, they have to. And those rules to release an animal and that's the goal, you have to release the animal. You can't just have it live in a cage or live on a sanctuary. It's got to be back out in the wild to be a certified wildlife rehabber. That's the goal. And the three things you have to be able to deliver that animal is, one, they have to be able to live the rest of their life relatively pain-free. Obviously, they're not going to be receiving medication, and so any pain they feel has to be no more than a reasonable amount of pain they're going to feel through bumps and bruises and injuries that normal life in the wild is going to give them. They have to be able to hunt or escape predators, or fly if they're migratory birds, or swim in the water, paddle in the water if they're water birds. And then the last thing is they have to be able to breed. So even if they're not an endangered species, if we have an animal that damages its pelvis, let's say a female mammal that damages its pelvis, and she's never going to be able to breed or bear puppies or babies for that species because the pelvic canal is broken, we unfortunately have to euthanize these animals. And those are the rules, and some people agree with it and some people don't, and I try and stay humble, and I just do the best I can, and just keep learning, and I'm not one to fight the system. Now, there's definitely wildlife places I work with that don't follow those rules, and as long as I feel the animal can be cared for well at a sanctuary, then I'll help them out as well. But I work at the pleasure of these rehabbers, and I allow them to keep their certification because that's very important to them and very important to the animals that they treat. Now, the releasing of these animals, I've been lucky to be involved in a very small percentage, but still a few of them. So I put together a bunch of videos I have of some of the animals I've released, including the bald eagle that was accidentally shot by hunters. And it was an accident, and then she went on and bit me right before I released her. We've got coyote, we've got a bunch of birds, including the very first bird I successfully pinned together. And this is why I do it. The releasing of the animals and seeing them fly or run, or in the snapping turtle's case, swim off into the gorgeous area of Mother Nature is why I do this and why I volunteer my time, and probably why I'm going to be doing it well into my retirement as well. So enjoy this. I hope it's as inspiring for you as it has been for me. So that bald eagle turned into a real nasty beast, which is appropriate. They should be frightened of us and not cooperating, but she attacked a lot of people and got a good piece of my finger as a little thank you for helping her get better. But I kind of like her for it. I like that she's tough, and she's definitely my most memorable case, in my opinion. All right, so 3 months ago, after not traveling for almost 2 years, we finally got to go to Panama, the little country between South and Central America. What a beautiful place. We stayed in the historic area, this historic center of the city of Panama City. I just rented a little Airbnb. I don't like to do resorts or fancy hotels, and I pay for everything myself. So Airbnbs are a lot cheaper. And we went for a couple of reasons, but the first thing we did was we did a 2-day spay and neuter clinic, vaccine clinic, and medical clinic for free at this little community called Totsa. Totsa is about 3 hours away from Panama City. It was arranged by all these people are vet students and a few vet technicians, as well as Dr. Jonathan, who I'll show you in a second. Dr. Jonathan owns a clinic in Panama. So I brought the materials, I sort of funded the thing, and then he and I did surgery sort of back to back, and we kind of had a joke that we were going to have a little fun challenge competition to see who could do more. Well, within a couple hours, he was clearly faster than I was, and I actually had some complications that I had to deal with. But it was also organized by this woman, Susie, who had just reached out to me and said, hey, we'd love for you to come to Panama as soon as you can. And I decided, why not? I'd never been there before, and she had done these. She had arranged some of these before, these spay neuter clinics, and that's a big deal for when I'm going to do these these trips, because I need to have someone who's going to be able to arrange a lot of the stuff. But we've got Stephanie with the stethoscope in her ear. She's going to be a veterinarian, graduating in a year. Same with Julian on the right. And then again, the team and Dr. Jonathan there on the right, very quickly outpacing me for these surgeries. And this little community, they had not had a veterinarian there for around 5 years. And so they ended up coming from, a good hour and a half away. This one gentleman on the left in the green shirt is the owner of the pickup truck on the right, and then that's his son. Well, people had quickly realized that this guy has a heart of gold and would save dogs. And so people started dumping dogs on his doorstep for him to rescue. And he ended up over the weekend loading up the back of his truck and bringing something like 14 dogs and a couple of cats to our clinic over the 2 days, all to be spayed or neutered. I think the oldest one we did was 14 years old, which apparently he was still sexually active at that age, which, all right, if that's what he says, but the guy was happy to get him neutered finally, and we were happy to do it, and the dog didn't seem to mind too much. But quite an amazing group of people. They were super appreciative, and I learned a lot. Now, I did make some mistakes. So, again, after 23, 24 years, these routine space surgeries, can still be problematic. Now, the problem with the dogs in a lot of these places that I've visited in the warm areas, and going to be a problem in the South US as well, is a lot of them carry diseases that come from ticks. Now, most of us know about Lyme disease, and Lyme disease from the brown dog tick, but there's a bunch of other types of ticks, and a lot of them carry a bleeding disorder, this disease that causes a bleeding disorder called ehrlichiosis. And that's what a bunch of these dogs ended up having, and unfortunately a few of them had some post-op bleeding where Dr. Jonathan actually had to go back in and fix my mistakes, for lack of a better term. And they were mistakes in the sense of I wasn't prepared for the sort of susceptibility that these dogs had for bleeding, and I wasn't cutting corners. I was being very sort of careful and following good standards, but they quickly taught me that the standards that are excellent for stopping bleeding and for tying off vessels here in especially the colder parts of North America, where we don't have these problems, they don't cut it on these dogs, on these, they call them Panama dogs, you call them island dogs if they're in Jamaica, but basically these southern dogs. And a few of them bled a fair bit. None of them died. They all survived. They all went home wagging their tail. But Dr. Jonathan had to jump in a few times and fix my errors. So again, you're never too old to learn, and you're never too old to get better. And you know, I'll be a better veterinarian tomorrow than I am today, and certainly better in a year than I am now. So, but everyone did well. We ended up spaying and neutering just short of 100. We did 95 dogs plus another 40 on top of that. So 135 received vaccines and various medications, all in 2 days with just 2 veterinarians. It was a pretty amazing experience. We also did some work with an owl rescue. Ileana has the little black mask there and the black gloves, and she's the one sporting the broken ankle. And she's the only owl rescuer and bird rescuer in all of Panama. They call her the Owl Whisperer. And at a young age of 58, she has now joined a sort of a vet certification, wildlife certification program in, I believe, San Francisco. And she's the only non-veterinarian there taking this course. So she's going to end up being quite a powerful tool for saving animals in Panama. So she does some of it online, and she flies up to San Francisco and takes these courses as well. And so she's got it. People just bring in owls, and even the government bring in owls that have been injured. She doesn't get any funding from the government. They just sort of assume she's going to do it because she loves these animals so much. She even takes care of a couple of possums. Their possums look much different than the ones we have here in North America, that's for sure. And you know, one of the things I was able to do is I was able to bring a Dremel. She had never heard of a Dremel before. And there's 2 owls here, and they're just fun, cute little videos because these owls look absolutely terrified. No one except for me knew that this was the first time I'd ever done this before. But since that never stops me at Shades of Hope, I was willing to trim beaks and trim nails on these owls. That one of them was missing a wing, another one had a broken and permanently damaged foot, and so it affects the way they eat. And so it causes their beaks or their nails to grow at unusual lengths and shapes. But check out this very short couple of videos. They're quite funny. If you're afraid of dentists, this is one you should put on mute because the noise is pretty intense. I know. It's got to be right, huh? No problem, Lisa. Take care. Yeah, so here's another quick one. You guys get the picture. So afterwards, Ileana was just amazed that I could do this, and oh my goodness, I could never do this. And then I told her that I'd never done it before, and she kind of was both shocked and then laughed. And I said, so surely you can do this. And I actually left her the Dremel, and she watched a few YouTube videos, which is what I had done. And she's already sent me some before and after photos of some of the other birds that she's able to take care of with the Dremel that we left her. So anyone can learn. This thing is, a lot of this stuff's not hard to do. If you can do the tiniest bit of construction on your house or fix a squeaky door, you can actually do quite a lot with animals as well. But go to vet school first. That's, I think, important. So then the second half of Panama, we flew down to a tiny little kind of vacation community called Bocas del Toro. And we worked with Raul, which is the guy in the photo on the left, and his dog Sky on the right. Raul runs the Bocas Turtle Conservation Organization, Bocas del Toro, and they rescue, they rehab, and they also keep an eye on and protect the nests of hawksbill turtles and leatherback turtles. And for anyone looking to volunteer, if you're of late teenage or early 20s, I guess any age after that, over the summer, they actually take volunteers and a couple of paid positions for the summer where they give you room and board, like food and a place to stay. And you monitor turtle eggs and count the turtles as they hatch and help them into the ocean and scare off poachers. It's a pretty amazing organization they've done or they've created there. The woman on the in the left photo is Dr. Aaron, and Dr. Aaron works for Floating Doctors in Bocas del Toro, which is originally started out as a human medical sort of clinic that went around on this sailboat that had been donated to them to all the different indigenous islands in that region. And they kept, they would take care of people and do various vaccines and medical treatments and nutritional consultations and whatnot, immunizations, that sort of thing. But they kept being inundated with questions about animals as well. So they finally put together a veterinarian side of it. And the joke is they'll usually have 4 or 5 doctors and some nurses each time they go to these islands, and yet they only have 1 veterinarian with no assistants. And it's the veterinarian that gets to do the cool stuff and probably does a whole lot more just because of the demand. But that might be one of the things I do as I come close to retirement, is because it's a solid 3 months with Floating Doctors. And Erin was sort of coming off of working at a horse. She owned her own horse clinic in Colorado, and she wanted to get back into the small animal field. So she was not only volunteering, but improving her skills. So while we were there, we got Raul took us on a hike, my daughter and I, as we went and checked out various turtle nests. And we saw a bunch of cool birds and these spotted poisonous dart frogs, and obviously this creepy crawly bug. That's pretty much all I know about bugs. And we did a little bit of work for the day with an indigenous community. And unfortunately, our camera fell in the water when I was trying to save a puppy that I thought was drowning, but he was kind of playing a trick on me. So we didn't get many photos, but we actually took one of these long boats into this community. There were no roads. And I got to say, I felt like Indiana Jones going down the Amazon River. And here's a couple of kids that are wondering what this guy from Canada is doing. And he obviously doesn't know. I was wearing a life jacket and all hunkered down so I didn't fall in the water. And these guys are acting like it's no big deal. Because they do it every single day. I think we got, yeah, here we go. They were quite amazed by us being there, that's for sure. But one of the cool things we had is Raul showed us this beach house. And the strange thing about this beach house is it was abandoned. No one had lived there for well over a decade. And you can see the trees had overgrown it and the moss, and that's the pool on the right-hand side there. But the windows are still intact. No one had gone and ransacked this place. Normally when there's an abandoned house, the windows are pulled out, the air conditioners are pulled out, The copper wiring is pulled out. This house had been left alone. Nothing had been taken. And it's because it is Noriega's house. Noriega, for those you don't know, was the president of Panama and into some drug dealing, I'm sure. And he used to spend some time with Pablo Escobar at this house. Pablo Escobar from Medellin in Colombia, one of the most famous, infamous drug cartel leaders as well. So even dead, nobody was messing with Noriega or his ghost, and no one would dare go and ransack his house. I think one day I may go and see if there's money hiding in between the walls, but if I find any, I don't know if I'll take it, because you never know. Noriega's that scary even when he's gone. But it was quite an adventure coming across this, and Raul thought, it's no big deal. You know, there it is. So we ended up doing another spay and neuter clinic as well. Now, I did not have Susan running this one, and I didn't have Dr. Jonathan. I was the head veterinarian this time. I organized the whole thing, and Dr. Aaron was my assistant. And not only were we doing this to spay and neuter these animals and help control the population and deal with certain diseases, but Raul had helped us, or had asked us to do this, and found us this community center that obviously was open, but that's how they are there. This community center for us to work in, or under, let's say. And it was so important to Raul because the stray dogs and stray cats, or even the pet dogs and pet cats, but they get to run free, they were breeding and causing the population of the cats and dogs to be so high that the cats and dogs were then going and killing the turtle eggs. So he was in charge of protecting the turtles and helping the population grow. And he was able to get some help in doing that by having us come and spay and neuter these animals. Now, I am happy to say that I learned my lesson from Dr. Jonathan and did not have any bleeding abnormalities. I took his lessons to heart and made some adjustments. And thank goodness, because these kids, boy, do they love their dogs, especially this gentleman in the black and white shirt, demo shirt. He brought a couple of dogs to see us and became sort of my good buddy for the day. But not only did I not have complications, but Dr. Aaron had a couple of complications, and she felt horrible. And I was able to explain to her and truthfully say, just 1 week prior, Aaron, the exact same thing happened to me. So I'm going to show you what Dr. Jonathan showed me. And in the end, I guess you see it once, you do it once, and then you teach it once, and that's how you become really good at it. So I'm now really good at it, and Aaron's cases did great. And we didn't lose any patients. We didn't have any serious complications after that. And I think we ended up spaying and neutering. It was quite a lot less because we didn't have technicians or vet students. I think we did about 52 over the 2 days. And there's that little buddy of mine. I want to show you this video because at the end, and this is something I try and do all the time, is you want to get future veterinarians or animal owners to love animals and appreciate them. So I was every kid, no matter if they don't speak English or no matter what culture or where they are in the world, are amazed by listening to the heart of their pets through a stethoscope. So that's what I'm doing here, is just trying to get these guys to appreciate how amazing these living creatures are.
Right? Aqui, corazón. Right? Comprende? Anyone else? Who didn't? Did you? Want to listen? Yeah, very good. Hello! Look at you. I know. It's okay.
And that was one of the ones that Dr. Aaron had a complication with. So you can see the big white bandage on its belly. And almost as importantly, at the end, we don't get paid for doing any of this, but they had caught us some fish from the ocean right that morning and cooked me up some fresh fish for dinner as a thank you, with some beans and rice and salad. And that was probably the best payment one could offer. Now our trip was pretty much over, but you guys may see that I'm covered in tattoos. Well, we ended up I got a turtle tattoo that day, and my daughter got her first ever tattoo. She's an artist and she drew her tattoo. She designed mine. She kind of took the turtle from the Turtle Rescue logo and then added the blue and the tail to represent the surfing that we did. And it was the first time she went surfing ever. And although she wiped out a few times and almost quit, by the end of it, she was almost surfing as well as I have on her first try. And I've been doing it for 2 years. Such is the athleticism of youth. But this is one of my most memorable experiences, is being involved with my daughter when she gets her first ever tattoo. Hopefully her mother's not too mad at me. I don't think she is. I don't think she cares. Now, I mean, I talked about going to India during Diwali. I've also already reached out and had acceptance from the South Thailand Elephant Foundation to work with the elephants that are used there in farming communities. The elephants, the entire elephant family lives and will give birth to a baby elephant, and then that baby elephant is raised, and it's like almost like generations of elephants and generation of farmers working together, and the elephants are loved and cared for well. And this South Thailand Elephant Foundation veterinarians go from farm to farm and give free service to keep these elephants healthy, and to educate the farmers about nutrition and parasite prevention. So that's going to be my next adventure, hopefully, as well. I'm going to keep filming, keep taking pictures, keep doing my cold ice water surfing, and I guess I can end it with ta-da. Oh, and I think that's it. So we'll just leave it on that screen. So I hope you guys liked it. I only went, since we started 10 minutes late, I only went 10 minutes over. Yeah, I mean, ask any questions and I'll let Joanna open it up. Dun, dun, dun.
I think everybody can unmute themselves if they have a question.
There you go. And then is there a way to, if I stop share, will it go to the Zoom screen?
Yes. Yes, there you go.
Perfect. All righty. Any questions from anyone? Did you guys like this talk? Who was here? I guess I can't do a show of hands because it won't pick up, but I wonder how many, Joanna, do you know how many were here from last time?
I know, and I don't know your name. The little girl is here.
I remember, yes, I remember you. Jamila, is that right?
Her name's Sailor, like on a ship, Sailor.
Ah,
Sailor.
Sailor. I do remember you, Sailor, last time, because you were tugging at your mom's arm asking to see a video, because I think I mentioned about one of the videos being graphic, and you were very excited to see it anyway. Good. Yeah, I mean, how was the talk compared to the last one? Because this one's a little different, a lot less videos.
I like this one better. This
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, good.
You?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
The bug is the exoskeleton of a cicada, right? Yeah. In that one video. It was a molted exoskeleton.
That's why it wasn't moving. I thought it was just going to be very still.
No.
Exoskeleton of a cicada.
It molded out.
Yeah.
Ah, look at that. Oh, look at that. I learned something new again. That's amazing. Yeah, it was there's a really good video on my Instagram from that trip too, showing I'm gonna say they're carpenter ants, but maybe they weren't carpenter ants, but they were ants. And it was thousands of them just running along this, you know, I'll call it a highway, along the ground and then up over, and you could just follow them for 100 feet of them going back and forth, and one of them carrying this giant stick going up this this steep piece of wood. It was like you know, this bodybuilder carrying this massive weight above them. It was pretty cool. And they were just like running around it, knowing, okay, this guy or girl's got you know, something too heavy, so no one bump into him. But, yeah, the bugs were fascinating.
Yep, yeah, and we remembered everything from the last one, and there was a lot more this time. That was great. Yeah,
Yeah, good.
in Egypt. Her favorite was Egypt.
Yes.
Yeah, Egypt was pretty amazing. Definitely.
Yep.
That was a great trip. Have you gone onto the YouTube channel and seen all the Egypt videos?
Yeah, we did last time.
Good.
Yep.
Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some good ones there. I stopped doing the YouTube videos and just sticking with Instagram. So I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, but that's got all the videos now.
We will.
Yeah, check it out, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm getting very excited about the elephants.
Oh, it's gonna be amazing.
When are you going?
I'm hopefully late October, early November. Yeah, because Diwali, the Festival of Lights in India, is a Hindu celebration, and it's late October. And we'll probably do both Hyderabad, but also the city of Pune is another rescue I want to work with. And then on the way back, we'll take a little jaunt to Thailand. So it'll probably be 3 weeks in India and 1 week in Thailand. So I'm making up for lost time.
Amazing. So I hope to have you back when you're
sure.
back.
Yeah, sure.
Oh
Definitely.
man, very exciting.
That'll be pretty amazing. And I mean, I'll do the same. That I'll do a bit of travel sort of stories, and then a bit of wildlife cases, because it's always more and more that I'm getting at this wildlife place.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. And it's animals that you see basically every day.
Oh yeah, squirrels, chipmunks, raccoons, porcupines, beaver. I did a beaver recently. That was pretty amazing. Canadian animal, right? A lot of birds. Thank goodness I didn't have to take care of them, but they had some bear there recently. Some baby bear. Yeah.
Oh, baby bear. That's probably not as bad.
Yeah, I mean, they're still big and strong.
Yep.
So they were literally just taking care of them because the mother had been shot, unfortunately, had been hunted. And there was twins, so they were left. So they were just taking care of them until they were strong enough to go to the sanctuary and then eventually be released. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of unusual situations. But that bald eagle is it's the only bald eagle I've treated, and wow, what an experience. And
I have to say that goal with the hook, that was incredible.
Crazy.
Crazy.
And we were literally leaving, and we dealt with a whole day of rescues, and then it was just like, no, wait. And we came running back in, and I think that surgery took about 90 minutes. Yeah, it was a long day.
Yeah, it looked very intense.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts.